Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my good pals Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
These fine fellows like to debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspects of a variety of topics, and this week's topic is unusual. It is the Mount Rushmore of Snowmen. It is the season, right? Maybe people in cooler climates than Los Angeles or Orlando are out there creating from the frozen precipitation humanoid figures out there in their yards.
If this is not like the summer climate version of mansplaining about what is interesting about a snowman, I do not know.
That's true. Who needs to explain a snowman? So this is the Mount Rushmore of Snowmen, and eeny, meeny, miny, Richard, you were the first person to start.
All right, so my first choice is the song Frosty the Snowman.
Also on my list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's one of those songs that's much like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah.
The type of song that you just think of as kind of always being around.
Yeah.
But it was actually, it was first written in 1950 and released in 1950 by Gene Autry.
Mm-hmm.
Later covered, probably most famously, by Jimmy Durante. And it was actually, purely a commercial ploy. Because after Gene Autry had a big hit with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer back in 1949, the songwriters came up with the idea, like, let's do a new Christmas song that Gene Autry can record. So what can we come up with that's like Rudolph but not Rudolph? I mean, there wasn't really a character named Frosty the Snowman before the song came out.
No.
Admitted completely out of whole cloth for the song. The song was basically just a way to cash in on the success of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer the year before.
Yeah. Was Rudolph from like a greeting card or something? I thought it was like a popular Hallmark card. And I thought, what the heck?
Yeah, it was a Montgomery's Ward creation.
Advertorial kind of.
Yeah, like an advertorial thing.
Okay.
So that one at least had some, it had been around in the public for a few years. This one is just completely made out of whole cloth.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, there have been a lot of different versions of it. Wound up much like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, also inspiring a Rankin Bass TV special.
Yeah.
One that for me, I don't know, Michael, are you going to talk about the TV special at all?
Yeah, I can talk about the Jimmy Durante one. They had another one that came out even earlier than that, like a black and white cartoon that kind of pops up on kind of weird best of. It's like when you see that old Batman like movie from like the 1930s.
The serial.
Yeah, it's like it's Batman-ish. He's got a gun. That's weird. So sometimes you see like the older versions of it before the ones that kind of swept into your world when it was late 60s, early 70s, something like that. Mm-hmm, that you're like, I recognize it, but yeah, I mean, the Rankin Bass one is right up there. Wait, hold on a second. Are we talking about there's like a cartoon that was the Jimmy Durante one, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then there is also like, maybe I'm thinking of just the snowman from the kind of claymation. Rudolph
the Burl Ives. That was kind of Burl Ives.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of different.
Yeah, the Jimmy Durante one is the one that was the Rankin and Bass one.
Okay.
And it's animated.
Yes. No, I think we're on the same page. Sorry, that was a long way around to get to nowhere.
Yeah, well, congratulations. We did it. What's funny is even though I love most of the Rankin and Bass productions of that era, Frosty the Snowman just completely missed me. Like, I don't know if it wasn't on TV enough when I was growing up, or if I just, had other holiday favorites that just spoke to me more. But I have no connection to the actual TV show, to the TV special, Frosty the Snowman.
I think there's also a late 60s, early 70s animation kind of style that, I don't know, it felt very visually uninteresting.
I think what we're
Go ahead.
What's confusing us is Rankin Bass did a two-dimensional animated Frosty the Snowman. So
Yeah.
we're used to they often did 3D
There we go.
characters. So yeah. But I think I'm with you, Richard, and it seemed kind of generic, not almost any style, not Hanna Barbera, not Warner Brothers, not Disney. Is kind of a smushy smush of animation style.
Yeah, which they did wind up doing. There was a sequel called Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. There
Mhm.
was a full length film
Yeah.
that was done in the Animagic stop motion style.
Okay.
Um, and so they kind of combined like a Frosty and Rudolph together as a superhero team up sort of thing.
Oh, like Godzilla and Gamera.
Exactly. So I haven't seen it. I don't know all of the
Yeah.
details. But there was a stop motion Frosty at some point, so maybe
Mhm.
that's where some of the confusion is also seeping
Okay.
in.
Okay.
God, they made a lot of Frosty sequels, which is again is surprising to me because I just don't think of it being like A Year Without Santa Claus
Mhm.
or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or some of the other classic Rankin and Bass
Yeah.
productions, but
Yeah.
it must have been. Let us know, guys, if you're listening and you're cringing because Frosty the Snowman is your absolute favorite Christmas
Mhm.
or holiday special.
Mhm.
Let us know why. Let's reach out to us on social media and let us know. I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that yeah, it wasn't Animagic, so it was a little bit different. And I what I love about Frosty the Snowman is the story is essentially about a strange drifter who comes to uh, kind of interact with young children. And so I can imagine this was fueled by some folklore retelling of a time when a toothless wino stumbled through a small town and, in a fit of manic energy, entertained children in this town for quite a while before passing out and then being dragged off by the local constabulary or something like that. So everything about the story, the song of Frosty the Snowman, feels like it only happened because of neglectful adults who allowed their children to spend an afternoon with this person who maybe escaped from a mental asylum or hopped
Richard,
off a bus.
Richard, Richard, we have accidentally stumbled into a Jeff cast.
Yeah, I
This
don't even think Jeff knew that he was getting into one, but here we are.
who
I
was
just
who
think
was this
even
who was this gentleman that you met that was wearing a top hat and a corncob pipe, and
he's smoking
he
a
had these eyes that were made out of coal, and
he's made out of coal, smoking God knows what in that pipe, and what must have been some magic in that old silk hat oh, I bet there was magic. I bet there was some kind of snuff or something in there that he was hopped up on. Well, that's very informative because I did not know that it was a product of kind of a commercial enterprise.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
try to get this. Let's
And
try to.
Michael, Jeff, what's real quick? What's your favorite cover of it? Not the original, but
uh, hmm.
I only know the Durante. Didn't
well,
Durante
you
cover it?
probably know the Ronettes version of it from
Oh
the
yeah, that's good.
After
Yeah,
Christmas,
yeah,
That one's
that's a good
very
one.
good. I think that's probably like the best version of it.
right?
But the Jimmy Durante one.
Mine would be Leon Redbone featuring
Oh,
Dr.
awesome.
John. Frosty the Snowman. I remember that would come out on VH1 during the holidays when I was growing up, and the video is completely ridiculous with
Oh wow.
both Leon Redbone and Dr. John, two people who have faces made for radio.
Yeah,
Occupying the same space is just a wild concept.
yeah. I will also say that, boy, I feel like Leon Redbone and Frosty share a whole heck of a lot in common
Yes,
because
they do. I've never seen them in the same place at the
no.
same time. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I think there's also precious little known about Leon Redbone. Like he kind of came in and people perceived him to be kind of in the cut from the cloth of like a Dr. John or a Frank Zappa or a Tom Waits or something like that. But I think he kind of vanished. He kind of appeared in some very commercial jingles and things like that. But wow, that's interesting. Okay,
Why do you,
well,
well,
go ahead.
here's a quick question. Why do you think that oh, what was his name? Um, Bobby Pickett, Bobby, what's
Bobby
his name?
Wars Pickett. Yeah.
Yeah, that did that Monster Mash. Why couldn't he follow up like the Monster Mash with anything successful the way that they followed up? Like, uh, like at some point you're just coming up with new songs for a particular holiday, right? Like, all right,
Yeah.
so we got Rudolph, we got Frosty the Snowman.
Hmm.
Why couldn't he come up with something else
Yeah.
that was
I think he
successful?
probably I think he probably like attempted to, and then he did the thing where you update the song, like the
Oh,
Alvin and the Chipmunks did, where you did the disco version or
mm,
the whatever
mm.
version.
I imagine that there's some other holiday creature out there lurking that was just like on the
Yeah.
edge of getting a great song.
Well, I think regionally, my East Coast born wife around the holidays, she was talking about great songs like "Deck the Halls" and "Jingle Bells" and "Dominic the Donkey." Like what? Like, you know, Dominic the Italian Christmas donkey. Like, what? That's like only in a certain region of the Northeast of
Mm,
the United States and maybe in Italy do they sing Dominic the donkey. Jiggity jig, hee haw, hee haw. It's Dominic the donkey, jiggity jig, hee haw. The Italian Christmas donkey, ah, da, 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 da. And the whole state
ah.
of Royal Island starts singing this song.
You know how they do those maps every once in a while where it's like, what state Google's,
Oh yeah,
whatever the most. There has to
yeah,
be such regionalism with Christmas songs too. There has to be like Feliz Navidad definitely dominates a certain southern sector and western sector of the United States, and Dominique the Donkey again. There, and there's Yoli Olson in the middle of the country,
yeah,
like Wisconsin. That is
yeah.
just like,
It's probably a meth dealer in New Mexico or something like that. Yeah.
Michael, by the way,
yeah.
did Bobby Boris Pickett, do a sequel to Monster Mash called Monster Rap in the '80s? You bet your sweet ass he did.
See that that's the thing is like I think that's just like Jeff said. Like that's so funny. Um, you don't want like an updated version of the same song. You want like I want to get into whatever the creature from the Black Lagoon is doing.
Yeah.
And he also recorded songs such as The Werewolf Watusi and Me and My Mummy.
Oh,
So
you know
he
what?
did
Never
branch
mind.
out.
Oh well.
I love that. So Pagliacci didn't only sing La Traviata. He also Okay, all right. Well, so I feel like we laid a good base. The first bottom sphere of the snowman has been laid with the one that we all kind of expect to hear. So let's go with Michael for the second choice here.
Okay. I've got to decide what order I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go with something that is more of a favorite thing of mine, and that is anytime Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes would make one of his
Oh yeah.
uh,
Also on my list.
Okay.
the attack of the deranged mutant killer monster snowmen um, was the name of one of his kind of collections of stories. But I was such a Calvin and Hobbes fan. Downstairs in a cardboard box is every collection except I think the very last one. For whatever reason, it got misplaced. They're just dying to come out whenever Felix comes of age.
Mhm.
But I grew up so much reading Calvin and Hobbes, um, and uh, what I remember is like his sense of imagination is great, but he had a sense of imagination that was like tied to the outdoors that I just didn't have. This kid that was seemingly built upon living in somewhere in Ohio, that saw every season, that saw fall weather, that saw amazing summers, that's had this huge outdoor life, and of course every year even though that um, Calvin never ages, if you followed it throughout like a year, he'd go through the stages of like he'd have a Christmas season and he'd have a summer season and all these different things. So when it ever came around to like a Christmas thing, there was so much snow involved in his outdoor world of play, and obviously snowmen became this thing that was um, so big in his outdoor world of play. And the first ones he'd start with like building a snowman uh, that would just have two heads, and he'd build these things to like gross out his parents or to be kind of what's the word, just mischievous. And then eventually it turned into his imagination, where he'd start imagining that these things were actually coming to life and attacking him. And I was just always like so impressed with how Bill Watterson could capture like the monsterism of something that's usually very gentle and family oriented and fun filled, and then turn it into this aspect of play and being chased around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Is that you're in the same ballpark there, Richard?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, it's just having had 6-year-olds, a couple of them who are now no longer 6-year-olds and are have grown older. But 6-year-olds can have twisted senses of humor.
Hmm.
Maybe it's just my kids. I don't know.
No,
But
no,
I
no.
could 100% see, especially my son, if we live somewhere where it's snowy, deciding not just to make regular snowmen, but to make these, snowmen with, uh, cannonball holes through them, like
Yeah.
leaning over and dying and stuff like that. I could totally see him getting into doing that rather than just your basic snowman with a corncob pipe and everything else. It just kind of speaks to, I think, what Calvin and Hobbes was so good at was presenting Calvin as a real 6-year-old. And that's how 6-year-olds are. All the pluses and the minuses and all the weird stuff that 6-year-olds are into, and kind of how they think. And obviously, he was a very precocious 6-year-old, but at his heart, he's still a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
And I think,
Calvin does seem like Watterson's advancement of the Charlie Brown's neurosis from inward
mm,
expression to outward expression. like
right,
for all Calvin's concern and distrust and fear of this cruel universe that's around him, and it's he expresses it in very outwardly, as opposed to Charlie Brown, who's just he's gone bald except for one little hair on his head since he's
right,
so torn apart by these things. I love it too because we're talking about snowmen as these kind of singular objects, but in this case, they are an expression of his very fertile imagination. So that's a lot of fun. They're kind of like they're the canvas. So we're at our halftime.
yes.
Just want to thank our new sponsor, Snow.
Oh,
That's right. Yeah.
the rapper,
Yeah, we got him.
performer,
Right. Licky Boom Boom now. Was that the wrong rapper?
boom, I can't even do it. Never mind.
Yeah, do us a solid and download, rate, and review past episodes. The long days and long nights of winter are coming up, and it's nothing better than to snuggle into your bed with a hot cup of cocoa and all of the Mount Rushmore podcast. Do that, listen to that, and another plea to grace us in 2023 with you as a guest suggestor or guest host. We'd love to have some of you, not all of you, on our podcast. It'd be a lot of fun to have you there. So I think we're back, and I think it's Richard's third. Or
Yeah, my third.
Okay, Richard the third.
Yeah. Now is the winter of our discontent. Literally. My third
Literally.
choice is the 1998 film Jack Frost, starring Michael Keaton.
Wow. Okay.
What a weird concept for a movie this is. So essentially, Michael Keaton plays a musician named Jack Frost, which, by the way, thanks mom and dad for naming me that. Who basically is so obsessed with his music career that he neglects his family. Then one day he dies in a car accident. Always the hallmark of a good family film.
Yeah.
Yeah, upbeat. And through various circumstances, he winds up coming back reincarnated as a snowman.
Hmm.
Not just any snowman, but a snowman who vaguely looks like Michael Keaton, which is that a really weird, uncanny valley to try and tread into.
Yeah.
And then it goes through, and he learns, he learns things from his son, and he's able to impart wisdom to his son, and then eventually he melts and goes into the afterlife. The end. Why am I spoiling this movie for you? Because you shouldn't see it. It's really not good. I went into the Rotten Tomatoes for this movie, and It was a mega bomb, both critically and in the box office sense. The Just all you need to do is see the preview, like I said, to see the Jim Henson Creature uh, shop actually worked on the puppetry for the snowman.
Hmm.
Um, it's not their best work. Go back and watch Labyrinth if you want to see them doing their best work. Now, they actually originally created it because George Clooney was attached to star with the film. So they actually originally made it so it would look sort of like George Clooney. Then he backed out, so they had to redo it to make it look like Michael Keaton. So maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. Um, Sam Raimi was originally going to be directing this movie,
Wow.
which is especially 1998 Sam Raimi is such a bizarre choice for this movie.
Hmm.
And wound up being directed by someone named Troy Miller. I'm not familiar with what else he's done, but um, it's just a strange movie. It's equal parts kind of frightening because the your dad dying and coming back as a snowman is just it seems like a frightening concept. Knowing that he's eventually going to melt because that's what all snowmen do.
Hmm.
Not
Mm.
only does you have to see your dad, you find out that your dad died in a car accident, you then have to watch him slowly melt away over the course of weeks. That seems like that's not that comforting to me.
Do you think that there's like an undead universe where he teamed up with Ghost Dad?
Maybe Casper is involved. They've got like some
Yeah,
sort of
just
like a super team.
all the family friendly ghosts are just
Yeah.
hanging out like doing japes and other fun things instead of scaring anybody.
I wonder if this was after or before. I'm trying to look in the chronology before
The horror film.
Mrs. Doubtfire. Like,
Oh,
did
mm.
somebody say, "Look how huge this was, and we gotta jump on this bandwagon"? And then this. So, how did they get so many Batmen to be considered for this movie?
And why wasn't Val Kilmer considered?
Yeah, Kilmer's like, "I'll do it. I'll do it."
The sensible of all bat
Yeah.
people.
I am glad you brought up the 1997 Jack Frost,
See now
Michael.
that one I've seen.
Oh,
I
Okay,
I
I
haven't seen
haven't
it.
seen it, but
I haven't
I
seen it in 25 years. I probably saw it. I mean, what was it? 97? Probably on a lark or maybe just like a rented movie sometime after that. Because I don't know. He's a scary snowman that kills you. What a weird thing to name the movie the exact same thing a
yes,
year after a horror slasher movie has that
mhm.
exact name. Like, are you just pot committed and you're just unwilling to change the name of the movie? Or, I mean, it could have been anything. I mean, I understand you don't want to go in and like ADR, like calling him Jack Frost or whatever, change it to like, Chris Snow or whatever, whatever it is to do. Like, there must have been a hundred other snowman type puns
Yeah.
that could have been done to avoid just be like, all right, kids, I need to go to the store to rent a family friendly movie. All right, I'm going to rent Jack Frost. Great. Then you walk in the door with the one where the snowman cuts you up and stabs, I assume, carrots through your face or whatever.
This has I see in the cast list Henry Rollins is in it, and it just feels like throughout the 90s and late 80s, like, there wasn't a movie that didn't have Flea or Henry Rollins like pursuing the protagonist
right.
in a truck, or like in a car, threatening to break their neck or something like that.
That's so funny.
That's good.
All right, what's your third, Michael?
Oh, my third. I'll go with I had like a little personal choice, and that is
Oh.
um real life pathetic snowmen.
Also on my list.
Real
Okay.
life.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're done here.
I got one more. I got one more
Okay.
after, but
Okay.
listen, coming from a Southern California background, I don't spend a lot of time in the snow. The time I have spent in the snow is meager, usually around like a melting snow up in the, I don't know, Big Bear,
Hmm.
uh, uh, Lake Arrowhead type area, which is, a couple hours, west or east and north of Los Angeles. It's in the mountains. There was snow ish, but like your idea to build a snowman when you're a kid, it's got these three perfectly round
Yeah.
globes of snow that are just like shaped perfectly. And then you get up there and you don't have a carrot. You don't have the corncob pipe. You don't have the coal. You don't really have a hat. You have like your uh, maybe a scarf that you put on this thing. And you look at this thing that is just so hideous.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, that's me for magic. Ah,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah,
And then you put your scarf back on and it's wet. And you're like, well, fuck. This is awful. This is a bad experience. Who wants to do this?
Oh, we occasionally take the kids up to the snow. Both our kids are would like to be in the snow more. And the problem is when you're trying to make a snowman here in Southern California, when you get to where there's snow, more often than not, it's slush.
Yeah.
You're making a slush man, not a snowman. And there's no way to get that thing to hold the form. You know, the classic big circle, middle circle, small circle on top. There's just no way you're getting that circle. The center will not hold, quite literally. So
Yeah.
the whole thing just turns into looks like you just like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, just playing with his mashed potatoes, and then you stick a hat on it and a carrot and some buttons, and you're good. And you say, "Oh, that's that. I guess that's as good as we're gonna do." Meanwhile, obviously, because we're in Southern California, nobody has gloves, so your hands are freezing by the time you're done with this. It's fun, but it never turns out the same way as you see it on the Hallmark movies.
Yeah. To Richard's point about as a Californian or person visiting the mountains in that region, having challenges of assembling a snowman. I lived in cold climates with long winters for 32 years. The snow was ideal once, one
Mm.
time, one
Hmm.
winter was the snow ideal because you need a lot of powder and you need it to warm up a little. Only then can you roll that sucker up into a big old honking snowman and make it work. But it does peeve me that whenever you do see a snowman on that special episode of Gilmore Girls or whatever, it's an art directed styrofoam thing that looks
Right.
perfect, like everything on TV does all the time. So, yeah, yeah, it's definitely an ugly. In the Midwest, every snowman I ever built had a dog turd in it somewhere. Uh, and you didn't have to put sticks in it because there was already a stick in there that was going to accidentally poke you or something like that. Okay. Richard
Michael's
Manfredi.
lost. No, it's
Oh,
Michael's lost
oh,
one.
sorry, Michael. What's your
I'm
final?
full out of snowmen.
So we have not mentioned drug dealers once,
Mm.
like cocaine dealers. So Kid Charlemagne by Steely Dan. There's a song about a snowman. Okay.
I think we stayed pretty true to task on this one, Richard.
Yeah, we did.
And
Okay.
I will finish with a newer snowman, Olaf from the Frozen family of movies, the Disney
Oh,
movies.
okay.
I like the character. He's very annoying, in spite of how annoying he is. I like him because he does seem to have this kind of existential crisis of being that I think is very fun and interesting. That he suddenly bursts to life and he's fully aware that he's a snowman. Um, he kind of comes out of the mind of the two girls that like there there's obviously some magic involved with how he has some sort of knowledge of being played with or being imagined by them and whatever. And he ultimately dreams of things that he can never have, of um, lying in the sun, but also forever destined to melt. He has this fun sense of um, kind of also being an idiot. He doesn't like know things that are happening, but slowly starts building up a sense of like a knowledge base. He's kind of gathering all these different things over the course of a couple movies and specials and whatever. Um, and I think that he is just so. Um, I think there is a unique sense of how they use him in fun, new snowmen ways that you don't often see. He has things that are poking in and out of him. He has pieces of him that are falling apart. He has he's changing constantly, always kind of coming back to his regular form. But they use the snow in such like great animatorly ways that you don't often see. I mean, I don't, he can take off his head and do stuff with it, or his body can fall apart and come back together. With Frosty the Snowman, not to take him down a peg, that top hat wearing son of a bitch. He's kind of set in stone. His shape is his shape, but Olaf tends to change, or at least they seem to play around with the concept of what a snowman looks like or acts. But ultimately, I think it's just his existential nature. Who it's like that. Toy Story. One of the Toy Stories had a Forky.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of came into being and was like, I'm trash. Why does anyone want to play with me? He's this kind of snowman that kind of comes into being and then has to discover what he's about.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I do. Yeah, remember thinking, oh, this is for all that Frozen animators had to probably deal with essentially 2 Disney princesses and then just a doofus in terms of Sven or whatever. Olaf, yeah, it seems like they were having a blast with this little schmoo of a guy who can do and be anything. Yeah, so yeah, it did seem like they were kind of making a meal out of that opportunity of, and like you said, his naivete was so kind of charming. I do want to punch Josh Gad in the throat. Because he just reminds me of a guy who took one improv class and said, yeah, I get it. I'm just louder and obnoxious than everybody else. Okay, improv, I get it.
I will say that he is fantastic on Avenue 5, if you guys have not started watching that yet. He is really good in that, as someone that you want to punch in the throat. Okay. So maybe it's just that he's playing himself a little bit. I don't know.
All right, guys, we did it. The Mount Rushmore of Snowmen. Like next week, now Mount Rushmore of Snowwomen.
Oh, equal time.
Equal time, man.
Yeah.
I mean, women. So let's. I think we got enough here to almost go with. Let's go with Calvin because we love you, Calvin, and let's go with Frosty because he's the OG. And real life snowmen because let's get real. And then man, it's between Olaf and Jack Frost. Going Frost.
No, right.
Going Frost. Because Mr. Mom was in it. Okay. This has been the Mount. Hey, jingle your bells, everybody. We're excited the holidays are here. This has been the Mount Rushmore of Snowmen. I'm always Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
He's Michael!